Views and content expressed in the following program are not representative of ONTV or the Board of Directors. ONTV and its Board of Directors do not endorse the views, thoughts, or content of the following program.
Welcome to Political Talk. My name is Corey Scott. Political Talk is a show where we have no cue cards, no teleprompters, no idiot boards, just ad-lib political conversation. To my right, I have Todd Schlager, and to my left, I have Dave Lillis, who looks like he's representing the Republican Party.
Well,
Maybe.
no, I'm showing respect to the Republican Party because the Republican Party has had a lot of good candidates. They have a lot of good people in the Republican Party, but I think what they've done is they have gone off into factions because now you have the Communist Republican Party. You have the Republican Party that belongs to the rich. You have the Republican Party that tries to initiate violence, and then you have real Republicans. Those are the people that followed Reagan.
Let's be all fairness. You just gave the same description of the Democratic Party as well.
No, I don't recall Democrats being communist.
What Republicans are initiating violence?
Well, you saw the one election in Montana. You've seen the fighting at the campaign rallies. That stuff is not necessary.
Which rallies are you talking about?
Trump's.
Because, well, those weren't Republicans that were fighting. That was supposedly caused by Democratic
Did you
Bernie
recall?
Sanders and Hillary's
No,
committees.
no, wait a minute. First of all,
what I've
one
been
thing
hearing
that
on
I want
both
to find
sides.
out. One thing I want to find out. Trump keeps bringing up how these people are paid to come to his rallies and cause trouble. I want to know, where do
have
you
to
hire
remember,
in for those jobs, and do they get benefits?
Every little rumor has some phase of truth to it.
Well-
Doesn't necessarily mean it's all truthful, but at least some of it has to be.
Going
And
along
it's
the
going
lines.
both sides. I mean,
No, you're right. It's absolutely both sides. What I'm wondering is, continuing what we were talking about last week when we almost brought the house down, was the fact that afterwards, the day after the show, for those people who didn't see the show before it happened, there was a shooting in Virginia
yes.
on congressmen.
Sleaze
That
or
stuff-
Slavis, what was his name?
I've no-
Scalise.
We had talked about how the two-party system not only is broken, but they've taken it to another level.
Mm-hmm.
It is imploding our government. The shooting was bad. It shouldn't have happened on either side.
Right.
But then what amazed me was afterward, a few days afterward, it came right back with commercials, with comments about how the other party did it.
Well, that's like we've always been talking about. They're looking for points to point out that this party's this way and this party's this way. Like I've said all along, almost every show I get a chance to say it, and they've lost touch with the people. And that was I mean, let's set the story straight a little bit here. The gentleman who done the shooting was a supporter of Bernie Sanders. He was actually a volunteer in Bernie Sanders' campaign. And he actually asked one of the congressmen that was leaving practice over there if it was the Democrats or the Republicans practicing, and he told him it was the Republicans, and he said thank you and have a good day. And of course now we know what happened after all
Okay,
that.
all right, wait a minute. I want to throw in, when they went on his email and they went into his information, they also found that it was Trump was the one that he was pissed off at what Trump was saying. I don't believe that Bernie Sanders, being a follower of Bernie Sanders, made him do that.
I'm just reporting what
But what did
the
happen
news had said.
is it brought in an animosity, a created animosity for both sides.
But you still have to put into the fact that the people have their own thoughts and wills. I mean, just because you have a two-part, and I'm going to probably hate myself in the morning for saying this, but just because we have a two-party system, which definitely needs to change, we can't always blame the parties for a situation like this, because each person is individual and they have their own will. Some of them are just a little, I shouldn't say it, but I'm going to, they're a little nuttier than we need.
Well, let me ask this question. Do you think that maybe it gives them courage to do things that they wouldn't have done before? I mean, they have a president who, let's just say, for instance, he wants to, stop the immigration. People come from other countries, and then you go on YouTube and you find videos of individuals who are making racist comments towards, Hispanics, blacks, anybody that's not originally from this country. So is it? 'Cause I know you say everyone has their own thoughts and will, but do you think that gives them that little push to probably act that way towards other individuals?
I don't know if I would call it courage, more like disparity, because I mean the people are truly sick and tired of the way our current government works, whether it be with Obama when he was in, or now with Trump. I wish it wouldn't be this way, but I think it basically is all that they're just tired of the way the system is against us, the people, and not for us like it's supposed to be. I mean, our government was created by the people, for the people. Now it's just by the government, for the government, basically.
Well, the other thing too is there's such an anger there of people who have not been represented. We have what we call a representative government. Each one of us has a representative in each phase of government, whether it be city, state, federal. The thing is, those representatives now are so entrenched in collecting money, which is one of the biggest problems in Lansing right now as we speak. They are spending more time, they're trying to pass a lot of bills, they're not even reading them. They're just passing them because they need to get out and start collecting more money for the election that's coming up. Now, everyone, as you and I have talked about, there's a job description. Every viewer out there goes to work, as do you, as do you, as do I. We have a job description of what we are supposed to accomplish in a day. We were supposed to be here on this time, this time, this time, and get this job done. However, the state legislature right now is taking more time to go out and campaign, but the rule is you must campaign for each other.
Right.
Which means in order to do that, you can't possibly be doing your job. Now, if you pull the job description from the state of Michigan, for a state rep, you are to work Saturday through Sunday. Sunday you have off. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, you're up in Lansing unless otherwise spoken for. And those 3 times you're to be up there reading bills, talking and conversing with others. But that's not what happens. The Speaker of the Senate and the Speaker of the House will dictate whose bills get in. Well, did you know that to get along up there, you have to go along? And as I said before, we had a state rep who did just that. So he didn't represent the district. The district got the residual of what happened.
That's what I've been saying. They follow the party lines. They don't care about the people.
But let's say you don't go and collect money. Then none of your bills, none of your legislation, as a matter of fact, you might as well not even show up for work because you're going to be shut out. That is not the type of government that we want. Now, Mr. Calley and Mr. Schuette have decided that, well, let's have a part-time. Well, I know why you two want a part-time, because this is a scheme of yours to try to get more power by having them in a tight period so you can control what the government is. And
that's still back to what I said last week. The whole thing is we already have a part-time legislature.
We have a part-time legislature because the people are not aware of what's going on. Well, I just told you what's aware of it, and if you want to go up and see it, go on up. I'm asking everyone here, call your state rep, call your state senator. Don't waste 20 cents because they're probably not going to talk to you. Or they'll tell you to go to their website. No, I paid my taxes. I want to talk to my congressman. I want to talk to my state rep. I want to talk to my state senator. You are working for me. I pay my taxes. Out of my taxes, you get a paycheck. Your office gets paid for. All those little perks that you get are paid for, your insurance and all of that. I'm paying for it. I deserve at least a phone call.
But they won't do it. Go ahead.
I just want you to kind of elaborate.
I mean, it's true. I mean, you've got Bill Schuette and Brian Kelly. They're fighting for a part-time legislature. They're saying, well, part-time legislature and part-time pay. Well, the problem with that situation is, like I said, we can't afford a part-time legislature because what they do as a part-time legislature, which we currently have, is, and again, Prop 1 is a perfect example. I mean, they push Prop 1 for a 1 cent increase to our sales tax. But they didn't mention about the other 10 laws that were hidden in behind it, and one of them happened to be a gas tax increase that was supposedly 4.3 cents at the current time. But yet, the 1 cent increase to sales tax was supposed to go to our roads and schools, which wouldn't have hit neither of the two, or our roads or schools, for 2 years. But the problem is, if we eliminate, and this is what I've been pushing across, we need a full-time legislature. They're already being paid a full-time salary, so they need to work full-time like you and I do. If we work part-time, we get paid for part-time.
Exactly.
But if we put a full-time legislature in there and force them one bill at a time and actually give them the ability to read it, then we won't have these hidden bills in behind it, or the pork belly or pork
And
barrel.
Line
stuff's on it.
item veto.
Right.
But there's two other things that have really decimated our government, and that is the fact, one, they lie. They do not tell you the truth. Now, when I campaigned, as I've told you before, I told the truth.
Right.
I got a lot of backlash from it, but I told the truth.
They should be letting us know what's going on. I mean,
How can you make a decision? How can you make a fair judgment on what is beneficial to your life if you don't know
the
what
facts.
you're talking about? Okay, that's number one. Number two, the past election, and I'm going back to the federal, has gone so far off the mark to denigrate and the stuff that's coming out of them is just an absolute disgrace. And that's on both sides. But it's also caused more people to do the same thing, because what it's done is it's justified it. It says, well, if Trump can do it, it's okay. Well, let me tell you one thing that I'd like to do, and this is going to get me into a lot of trouble. You ready for this? Tom Cotton wrote a letter to Iran during the Obama administration.
Yep.
He got 50 some senators
I think
to
it was
sign it.
55 or 56 senators.
And he said that whatever you agree with Obama, when we get in office, it's nullified. How can you have a government like that when you can't trust them? Okay, so here comes Trump. Now he is lying and is derogatory. The world does not belong to us. Our government was taken off of a monarchy.
Right.
And we got rid of that. We wiped it out and said, no, this is going to be a people's government. But now we have people now who are so, and again, Democrats and Republicans, nobody is out of the mix with this. They are so drunk on power and collecting of money that they've forgotten exactly who they represent or that they represent anyone at all.
Well, Dave, just like in the last show, I asked you, we all know, first off, there's no perfect government.
Right.
There's no perfect president. What do you feel the people have to do in order, just like the was it Tom Cotton?
Tom Cotton?
I mean, how can we as people allow something like that to take
Well,
place?
let me ask you this. What if I wrote a letter and put it out on the air and said to all world leaders, our president is a jackass and don't listen to him because he's got mental problems. Now, what I just said has been said on TV, not only by congressmen on both sides, but the press. This man has been hit with comments that shouldn't be happening. However, he did it. So how do you justify, well, they shouldn't be talking about him like that? Well, but do as I say, not as I do? I can do it, but don't you do it to me. Now, in defense of Trump, Trump has come up all through his life, with the exception of his father, where everyone has said yes to him. Yes, yes, yes. It didn't matter what the issue was. They said yes. And if they didn't, if they went against him, they were out. So he had absolute supreme power in Trump Tower. Okay, now he's in the real world where people don't kiss your hind parts. And he can't handle that. So what does he do? He backlashes. But that's not making things better, it's making things worse. You have divided people. You've divided families. You've divided groups of people against one another. That is not government. That is not the government we had. We have the right to disagree, but we also have the right to come together and form an agreement. And that's what these two parties are absolutely not doing. You want a good politician? Show me how many of them know the difference between right and wrong.
Well, if they've been brought up by a decent family at all, they should know what's right and wrong. They just choose not to participate in it, let's put it that way. But here's the other thing, and I've said this also before. No matter who's president, you better hope like heck that Michigan gets a strong governor, because that governor is the shield between the people of Michigan and that presidency.
Well, look what happened to our governor. Look at the mistakes that he made, and now he's so deep in those mistakes. I saw someone on the news last night. This was a lady from Flint. Mm-hmm. They showed this particular clip. She said, I trusted you. You told me it was okay to drink that water. Mm-hmm. You told me that water was safe, and I put my little girl in that water. Now, she wants to have kids 20, 25, 35 years from now. And because of what you told me, and I relied on, you lied to me. It wasn't that you didn't know. You lied. Then they went up to Lansing, and what happened? Snyder, Callie, Schuette. Schuette was just as involved in it. He knew. And yet, he allowed it to happen. The roads. They said, oh, we need more tax money for the roads. The fact is, you haven't even started on the roads. You didn't need the tax money. You needed to know how to use the money that you had.
Well, let me ask this question. Yeah. Okay, with all the, I guess, the so-called wrongdoing that's going on. Crap. Who is being held accountable for all the things, especially like with the Flint crisis? Who is being held accountable?
Nobody. But you know who's going to be held accountable? The courts. Because the courts are, when all is said and done, when it hits the courts, somebody's going to have to pay the price. Mm-hmm. So what did Schuette do? Schuette's trying to ingratiate himself with the voters by doing this phony baloney. I'm going after those people. They did wrong. No, you did wrong too. You were in on it. You knew about it. You did nothing until you were caught up in it. And then all of a sudden, you did two task force. One was under your control and one was not, which was all crap. And then you paid for it out of taxpayer money. Then, Mr. Callie, you pulled your little fast one by getting $7.5 million for Snyder's legal fund, and now we're going to go through the charade of Mr. Schuette. I'm going to get to the bottom of this. I'm going after Mr. Snyder. And then, guess what? All of us can sleep easy at night because we get to pay for his legal fund.
It's not just his legal fund. And personally, Schuette is part of this whole situation,
sure he is.
No matter how you look at it. Mm-hmm. You have the top three jobs. You got Attorney General, you got Lieutenant Governor, and the Governor. Mm-hmm. Now, Schuette has come out and, he said why he can't charge the Governor so far, and a lot of it is because the Governor won't cooperate. Mm-hmm. Now, we said this, I believe last year. If we tried to stonewall an investigation, they would just arrest us. Mm-hmm. And I understand the Governor's office has some protections, but the problem is, the people of Flint need answers, want answers, and they want a remedy to the situation. Schuette should be recusing himself and letting his deputy attorney general do this because he is part of this case, whether he wants to admit to it or not. I mean, they went so far as to charge Darnell Early, who is the emergency manager of Flint, with involuntary manslaughter now, which holds 10 to 15 years. Now, he answers directly to Rick Schneider. So how does that not bring collusion in there with Rick Schneider? If he's answering directly to him, then that means he had to say yes or no to some of the situations. But there's no, well, you don't even have to look for proof for it because the emergency manager law states that he answers directly to the governor's office.
I want to ask you a question now. all politicians across the board, and we brought up the issue of knowing right from wrong.
Okay.
The stuff that happened should never have happened.
No, it shouldn't have.
These are people that came across with no responsibility, no forethought, just like right now, Meekoff and the Speaker of the House are pushing bills through Lansing as fast as they can without even reading them. Now, here's
But that's
another.
been something that's been done
Yeah, well,
for years.
Let's take it what's going on now in the federal government. The Senate right now has the
the
bill.
blank bill for health care.
Okay, now they've already changed the rules to get the Supreme Court justice in. And the Democrats have changed the rules. Now, wait a minute. This is not our democracy.
No, it's not.
We do not change the rules in order for one party to have an advantage over another. We are not a system of parties.
But
We are a
they've been
system
doing
of
this.
people.
They've
that-
been doing this for decades.
Why?
Every time they switch power, they change the rules to benefit
Well,
themselves.
it was the same thing that I said. When I campaigned at one house, and I talked with people for about 15 minutes. They loved everything I said, and as soon as they found out I was a Democrat, they slammed the door in my face. Now, wait a minute. When I was talking to you before you found that out, everything was great. We agreed on many issues. We thought this was great, this was great. But then the word Democrat slammed the door in my face. Now, it's the same thing if I was a Republican. Why has the parties gotten so volatile and have such a connotation that we are enemies? We cannot have a government of enemies.
But that, you know where that started? That started with the families. That didn't start with the two-party system.
With the families?
It started with the families, because this family grew up strongly Republican. This one grows up strongly Democrat. They tell their kids that you need to vote before. Now it's changed, and I've seen this change. But they would tell, you know, we are staunch Democrats or staunch Republicans. This is how you vote. This is what this party believes in, and this is the biggest thing I've got a laugh out of in the last 20 years. 20 years ago, we thought the Republicans were based more on businesses, and the Democrats were supposedly based on more family. It's really not that way, no matter what. It's hard to tell who's a Democrat and who's a Republican nowadays,
True, but
as a party goes, because they've gotten, what's the word I'm looking for? Well, I don't even know what the word is I'm looking for, but the whole thing is they've gotten so far away from what our republic is all about and the democracy that we're supposed to be. And again, they've lost touch with the people. They don't pay attention to what we as a district or a state need or want. They want to go, like you said, for the money. That it's more about who's got the most money and the most power rules, and it's got to change.
with that money being put out, you don't have to see the candidate. You don't have to talk to them. They don't want to be touched. They don't, and now more than ever, they have to watch what going out in public. Well, you brought that on yourself. You took, at one time we could take the good from both parties and bring it together and come up with a great solution, but we can't do that now. Now we are so divided that now we attack each other. And that has got to stop.
The people have to change. That in itself.
Yeah.
I mean, I tell everybody, you know, I'm an independent, and I've said that on this show. I'm an independent. I am not a Democrat or a Republican because I don't like the way either party is. I push people when they ask my opinion. I always say, you know, I ask myself a couple of different questions. And the questions that I ask is this candidate going to benefit my family? And my family's always first. I'll be the first to admit that. And what's it going to do for my community? He or she is the best way I can think about doing it, and that's what I always urge people to do.
Okay. We have to wrap this up. I'm Corey Scott, Dave Lillis, Todd Schlager. This is Political Talk, and we'll see you next time.
Views and content expressed in the previous program are not representative of ONTV or the Board of Directors. ONTV and its board of directors do not endorse the views, thoughts, or content of the previous program.